For me, vulnerability is the kind of thing that I put into all of my roles and everything I do. Probably the most success that I've ever had in my life is when I stopped trying to be accepted and just became the best version of myself. Hi, this is Terry Crews. I'm here with Teen Vogue, and this is The Come Up, where I discuss some of my earliest roles. My first role ever was a TV show called Battle Dome. It was the first thing I ever auditioned for. I was broke. I never even thought about acting ever in my life. I asked my wife, "You think I should go in this audition?" She was like, "What do you got to lose?" I go to this thing and I get it. I played this warrior named T-Money. They put me in a cage. We were basically wrestlers, but we would take on regular people, regular contestants. I had never been that nervous, never been that scared. And I mean, like literally my hands would be shaking, everything in me, and I would go like, "Don't throw up, don't throw up." I had a posse, I had a crew, and you might meet them, and they say, "Hey man, where's T-Money?" And they were like, "Oh man, he's getting ready, man." The first time they see me is when that door opened, and I was in character, I was mean, I was ruthless, and they were just so scared that usually I would win. After the show, I would come up to them and go, "Hey man, thanks for being on the show." And they were like, I thought you were mean. Because really, I'm not mean at all. I realized when I played in the NFL, that's kind of part of the game. The intimidation, the bigness, you go, you beat your chest, you act like, and then in the end, we all hang out. And that is what the wildest thing about playing T-Money. Right after Battle Dome, I got a chance to audition for a movie. We can help you. I've never auditioned for a movie before, so I go in and meet the casting director and the whole deal, and I'm like, I do the whole thing. She says, "You're pretty good." And I think she's lying. I really thought she was just kidding. I get a call and they say, "Hey man, you got a part in this movie, The Sixth Day, with Arnold Schwarzenegger." Now, I think I'm gonna be on set for a day, and I get a chance to get killed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then I just go back home. Turns out, I was in Vancouver shooting this movie. It was a main role. I was there for 4 months. I had no idea it was as big as it was. Now I'm scared. The first time I ever acted on screen was with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was like, oh, and here we go, nerves. All the bubbling nerves. I'm gonna throw up. And I turn around and there's Arnold Schwarzenegger looking me in the eye. They call action. I go in there and I look at him in the eye and I'm like, and I say nothing. I froze. It was the scariest moment. I was like, oh no, it's over. And they said, cut. We got something wrong with the camera. Now, it was so fast, they didn't know I froze. So I go back, and I'm talking to myself over on the side. And I go, "Man, what are you doing? Do you want to go back to doing security? This is your opportunity." And I remember just feeling like, man, if you don't do this, you will never do this. They called action again. I went up to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was like, "Hey, Adam Gibson, come with us." And he was like, "I like this guy. He's really good." And I was just like, oh my God, I got to do the thing. After that, I knew that was the future for me. I was actually invited to be on the set of Training Day by a location manager who knew me when I was doing security. He invited me to come watch. Cool ass bitch. The director basically came up to me and said, "Hey man, you want to be in this movie?" And I was like, yeah. And I was an extra in Training Day in several pivotal scenes, which kind of blew my mind. I remember watching Denzel work. I took what he did by watching him, and I learned basically how to create a theme. I remember he had a script, and he was going through a script and the whole thing, and I got a chance to peek at the cover of his script. And on the script he had written, "The wages of sin is death." And I went, oh my God, because he was playing this really, really bad guy. He said the only way he would do this movie is if they killed him at the end, because he really wanted to show that none of this stuff pays off. Even in my career, there have been roles that I've done or been offered that I looked at and I thought, okay, these guys want me to look good. They want this thing to look whatever, but in the end, it's not truthful. A lot of times they have bad guys getting away with things. That kind of let me know what to turn down and what to keep. And I never lost that. That's something I was like, whoa, like the wages of sin is death. I said, This is mind-blowing. Friday after next, fresh fish on the line. Something that was said in movies earlier is that muscles are not funny. Friday after next really changed the game for me because it proved that muscles could be funny. My character Damon in the movie was usually supposed to be a really bad, intimidating guy and the whole thing, but the way he had the turn flipped on him, it really provided a lot of the comedy that the movie needed, and it really set me off on a real comedic bend. What I realized is that the people who don't want you, stay away from them. And then there are plenty of people who do want you, and you will have plenty to do. In fact, you'll be booked for life. Platinum was a TV show that was basically Empire a decade before its time.
It used to be Baby Tip's joint, Max's Man.
It was all about the music industry. I played basically a Suge Knight character. I was mean, I was evil. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a mean Terry Crews. He's somewhere. And I have to usually push him back. You know what I mean? I always center him, keep him somewhere, kind of locked up. But when I get a chance to play those kind of characters, I go really, really in. And it's kind of freedom, and it's weird because I actually need a little bit of deprogramming once I'm done with those kind of roles so that I can shift back into a more, just civilian garb, you know what I mean? Because it gets really dark. It was a very, very short role, but it led to other things. Jesse Terrero directed this movie. It was Kevin Hart's gigantic movie. I wouldn't even have wrote no shit down like that, homie. It was so amazing because I knew I was in this movie with all these superstars. There was a lot of ad-libbing, tons of ad-libbing, and I was a little nervous about that. But I relaxed. Tom Arnold made me feel good. It was my little scene. Most of my lines were made up, to be honest. We just kind of did it, and I went home. And it was one of those things where I was driving home like, I hope that turned out all right. Like literally, it was so fast, so quick, and then you see it in the theater, you're like, oh, wow. There's an advantage by doing things, sometimes stream of consciousness, not overthinking things, just letting it flow. Now, I got a fact that nobody knows. It is the most bootleg movie of all time. First of all, 6 months before the movie came out, I was at the gas station, and I was pumping gas in my car, and somebody said, hey, man, you did a good job in Soul Plane, dog. And I was like, hey, man, the movie ain't even out yet. He's like, man, I got that at home, dog. And I was like, wait a minute. I remember going to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. There were copies of Soul Plane sitting out there. They were like, hey, man, you got Soul Plane? I was like, I'm in Soul Plane. You shouldn't have this. How did you get this? And wait, it was a pristine copy. It was so clean. It had DVD extras. I was like, how? Malibu's Most Wanted, that was an all-star cast. Jamie Kennedy, Taye Diggs, Anthony Anderson. I'm a vote for him. I'm basically a background player, but every time I got a shot, I would do something really kind of quirky. I remember dancing in one of these scenes, and I had this one little dance, and the director was like, do that again. Hey, do that again. And I just kept doing it, and the camera just kept going over to me. And I remember what really changed everything because Damian Wayans, who is the nephew of Sean and Marlon Wayans, was basically playing my boss. And he was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna introduce you to my uncles, man. You gotta meet my uncles. Man, you are funny. And he just kept saying how funny I was. And he was like, I gotta introduce you to my uncles. And lo and behold, that led to White Chicks. In 2004, I was in the movie White Chicks. This is a movie where I call it in the zone. First of all, I am on the set with the Wayans, who are responsible for pretty much all of the comedy from the 80s and 90s. So many careers have been started, and I'm going, okay, this one I'm feeling so in the vibe, where you go past nerves. Like you're nervous at first, but now you're in a whole nother thing where everything you do worked. That movie really set me on my path because that's the movie I got my confidence on. To say that, hey, you know what? You are validated. You are good. You are actually someone that people want to see. You actually have to tell yourself that. I think a lot of times I've been willing to show who I really am. All of a sudden people go, wait a minute. I decided to build my career and who I am from the ground up so that the image reflects what's really here. A lot of times that tends to be groundbreaking just by being yourself.